to give the floor to the next, our honorable speaker, and this is Julie Posetti. Julie Posetti is okay. I need to find her precise position. So
International Center for Journalists, and we are very happy to welcome you here on the stage of our Zoom stage of the conference. Do you hear us? We can see you.
I can hear you, yes. Despite the technical gremlins, I can see you too. Thank you very much for welcoming me.
So the floor is yours now.
Okay, excellent. I understand your colleagues there have the capacity to put some slides of mine on the screen so that I can address those as I talk. So while they do that, I'll outline what I want to discuss, and that is the role and function of media and information literacy. If you can just go to the previous slide for me, please. The first slide is the one that we're looking for. That's it. So the role of media and information literacy in an age of viral disinformation and hate speech. And you'll see there the cover of a book I co-authored, which was published by UNESCO in 2018, called Journalism, Fake News and Disinformation, which does focus on media and information literacy as one form of essential response to the disinformation crisis. It also, however, highlights the function of disinformation in another phenomenon, and that is the targeted abuse and verbal assault against women journalists in particular, but journalists more broadly, and audiences and sources who interact with journalists online. So I want to address these two issues in combination, and just some thoughts to try to frame this intervention. So obviously, access to information is now less challenging for many communities around the world, thanks to the advent of the internet, which gets easier to access and cheaper to access for many as each day goes by, despite the many gaps that still exist in terms of connectivity. But such easy access to the internet needs to be matched with skills and knowledge that help citizens assess information and to navigate viral loads of disinformation and sometimes devastating hate speech. They need to understand that their opinions or those of their friends do not equate with genuine expertise about public health or climate change or migration or the outcome of free and fair elections or any number of other issues. So effective strategies to match access to information with the skills to critically assess information could help mitigate susceptibility to dangerous online conspiracy theories, for example, as well as disinformation purveyors. I'm not sure if you're able to still see my screen. We seem to see somebody else's screen at the moment, but I will keep going. Despite this focus on access to information in combination with the need to assess information in parallel, I do think it's time to consider reassessing what media and information literacy means in this era. And I want to start by thinking about what media literacy is not in the case of information chaos, and that means, you know, a combination of viral disinformation and networked hate speech, for example. The first thing it's not a quick fix, and it's certainly not a magic bullet for countering viral disinformation or a curative balm for networked hate speech. It's not enough to teach verification and critical thinking skills to school students and audiences and communities. News publishers, states that have an interest in ensuring open societies are sustainable, political leaders, the platforms, civil society organisations and intergovernmental organisations have a shared responsibility in this game. And I think we need to be cautious about any suggestion that we can outsource solutions to information consumers in the absence of other measures. It's not a replacement for ethical, independent journalism, for example, that takes a critical approach to power. And it's not an excuse for the platforms to abrogate their responsibilities for accountable and transparent approaches to their businesses. We need the platforms to be putting human rights, including the right to access information and other freedom of expression protections, at the core of their algorithms and business models. And it's not a defense, effectively, against political actors or states that weaponize digital communications to manipulate voters or to gag critics. And something that Nobel Peace Prize laureate Maria Ressa said yesterday before the UK Parliament is pertinent here. She laments that too often the platforms have gagged the angels and given a megaphone to the devil in online conversations. And I think that's a potent image to think about. But let's think about then what media and information literacy is in the current context. It is a fundamentally important medium to long-term intervention to help equip citizens, both online and offline, to take a more critical attitude to assessing information and sources. It is a partial strategy to help protect journalists from online violence that might be perpetrated by misguided citizens or those who weaponize the internet for nefarious purposes. It is a partial method for increasing trust in facts and in reliable public interest journalism. And it can empower citizens to contribute to investigative journalism, probing corruption and organized crime, sometimes as whistleblowers, sometimes as confidential sources, in the interests of development. So we began in the handbook I showed earlier, the UNESCO handbook from 2018, by considering what information literacy, media and information literacy mean in the context of disinformation struggles. If I can get the colleagues to go to the second slide, I want to talk a bit more about one of the case studies that appeared in that guide. So the slide that you're about to see focuses on Maria Ressa, who I mentioned is the Nobel Peace Prize, one of the two journalistic Nobel Peace Prize winners for 2021. We highlighted Maria Ressa and her organization RAPLA's struggle against disinformation and online attacks in that UNESCO handbook. Since then, we have conducted a detailed study on Maria Ressa, which has been published by both ICFJ and in part by UNESCO. And what you see there is an example of the kinds of abuse in that word cloud at the bottom left of your screens, the kinds of abuse she suffers on a daily basis. And you can see from some of the highlighted terms there, the larger they are, the more prominent they are, the more frequent they are. Queen of fake news, liar, a lot of gendered terms that also highlight the ways in which women journalists and women truth seekers and public interest communicators of all kinds encounter in the online world, particularly on the social platforms. And I'm showing you that because it demonstrates the end result of a failure of media literacy in combination with the failure of platform business models and the failure to appropriately respond at a governmental and policy level to the problem. But also because Maria Ressa's case is quite emblematic as an experiment in media information literacy as well. She actually began to respond to this crisis when she first came under attack online in 2016, having built RAPLA as an organization that put audience engagement and community service and media and information literacy at the core of their business. So she began in the first instance by responding with a campaign which used a hashtag, no place for hate. And they responded by undertaking media literacy training and other sorts of activities to try to boost their audience's knowledge and help fight back. But later, by about 2018, she decided that this had actually been quite a naive approach. What it required was a combination of those kinds of efforts, which we are talking about today, with an advocacy strategy that, as she says, held the feet of the platforms, particularly Facebook, to the fire to ensure transparency and accountability, along with the tools of investigative journalism to highlight some of these issues. Now they have re-embedded really creative approaches to media and information literacy within their community in parallel. So they have used large-scale webinars to train citizens in fact-checking and information assessment, and to then be able to use those skills in development within their communities in addition to the strategies to fight back. So let me just conclude, and I'd encourage you to have a look at that case study, which is freely available online, and I can put a link in the chat for you. But let's riff off this idea then of roadmaps for media and information literacy, which is what this conference is titled. So it conjures up an image of an orderly journey, if you like, towards information enlightenment for all. And I just want to point out that, you know, it's no longer orderly. It's very chaotic on the 21st century information superhighway. We frequently see pile-ups and pile-ons. You can't necessarily trust your navigation system. It might have been built for another era. And the vehicles we drive on this information superhighway, the platforms are unreliable and increasingly unsafe in some settings. And the drivers too often lack the skills to appropriately operate their vehicles. And that's what we're talking about here with media and information literacy. Or they can be careless or malign behind the wheel. So sometimes this can result in even deadly consequences. And I think we need to acknowledge that we need to emphasize a collaborative approach to media and information literacy that links up all of these different concepts of what it means to exist within a roadmap and to take the directions that it might indicate. So we need safe roads, well designed to a high standard. We need safe vehicles. We need safe driving practices, and we need trustworthy governance of the highway system and vehicle manufacturing, if you like, to really stretch that metaphor. In other words, all of this has to work together. We can't, any of us, individuals, corporations, international organizations, step back for a moment, because this really is a battle for our times. That is ensuring that reliable, trustworthy information can be accessed, and accessed in a way that helps inform citizenship and aid development, as opposed to the situation we currently are in, where we're having to deal with the consequences of the failure at the designs level of the platforms, for example, and states are struggling with how to try and regulate, with a whole lot of risks attached, social media activity. So to put the light then squarely back on the role of individual citizens, while ensuring that we work collaboratively and collectively to make sure that everybody in this ecosystem is behaving responsibly, I think becomes the necessary emphasis. And I've lost track of time, so I'll leave it there and look forward to hearing what others have to say.
Thank you for stressing the great importance of the media literacy in our today's world. So we thank to Global Director of Research of International Center for Journalists, Julie Posetti. We were very honored to have you here. Tātad mūsu viešņa bija Starptautiskā žurnālistu centra pasaules pētījuma direktore Julie Posetti, bet šobrīd turpinām starptautisko konferenci medijpratība ceļa kartes, un jau esam ielūkojušies medijpratības lomā sabiedrības attīstībā.
Now continue, and during the next hour we will turn to several very important topics. We not only get to know, we'll be introduced to a very important research about situation in Latvia, but we'll also listen to